Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 3. I'm sorry for the long delay and for the abrupt ending on the last video, but I had just finished going over these two tables over here. This one reads Jesus, delay, Easter, reap, and you see the word Easter coming at an angle here in the text. And this one was coming up in Matthew 26, and I had just realized that the one I had just read after that, this one over here, which reads Jesus, delay, Easter, Pentecost, dead, rise, saint, holy, and this one has Easter going this way in the lavender at an angle, and it crosses with the word saint over here in the green. And I had just realized that these were actually the same table. They were both coming up in Matthew 26, and they both took place, or the matrix takes place, when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. But as you can see, when you look on here, I had done several Easter tables, and starting from over here, I'll just read off the chapters. This one was in Luke 9. There was one in Chronicles 5, one in John 6, one in John 18, one in Philippians 1, one in Numbers 11, one in Genesis 27, one in Ezra 10. This one was a different one that was in Ezra 10 that I wanted to share also, which had the word ascend and Passover, but this one did not have Easter. And then this one had Easter, and it was in Mark 12. And then this one is the one that had the word redemption that I just went over in the last video, that was coming up in Exodus 21. This one was coming up in Psalm 74. And this one over here was coming up in Ezekiel 40. This was about the millennial temple. And this one right here I haven't gone over yet. And I think that was the last one. And then all those tables up here, I had actually narrowed it down with the word Natan, because there's lots of tables in the Bible code with the word Easter. There was 147 matches, so I'm not sure exactly how many matrices there are with the word Easter encoded in ELS. But as you can see, there's several, because these have been narrowed down, because they also contain the word Natan, and I still was able to find that many tables on Easter, so it must be very significant. And the only one I haven't shared yet is the one over here where I had put in the 9th month, and I'm not really sure where I saw that. I think there might have been another Easter table that I was working on that I believe it came up in Habakkuk, and it was talking about the 9th month, and I think that's why I put in the 9th month here. But as you can see, I put in Easter and first fruit, April and May, and the only reason I didn't show that one earlier is because I didn't think it was as impressive, because the word here is actually the word Eastern, and when you leave off the N, you see the word Easter encoded in ELS, and it's just at a skip of 1. It's like it's in the plain text, so I didn't show that one. All the other ones were encoded with a skip that was more than 1. And so I haven't really shown this one yet, but this one is also interesting because, like I said, it has the word Easter, and it's actually coming up in Joel 2, which is very significant. It's concerning the Lord's return. And a lot of you are familiar with Joel 2, but I may go ahead and read that matrix real quick. But I just wanted to show you how the word May comes up here in the yellow, and then the word April comes up in the light green, and crossing the word April you have the word spring, and both of these months are in the spring, so that would make sense. And then right here next to the word May you have the word beast, And then right next to the word beast, you have the word die. Of course, this is a spelling for the other kind of die, which may be intentional if it's talking about the beast dying, if you've seen some of the other Bible codes that I've done about that. But I'm not saying that it is, but I'm just saying the words that come up here. You see the word die and you see the word beasts, which is actually in the plural, but for the sake of a table, it could be singular if you leave off the S. But it's very interesting that Easter is coming up in this table, and this one is in Joel 2, verses 17 through 23. And I'll go ahead and quickly read this matrix because it's a very interesting matrix for it to come up in. And it says, "Let the priests, the ministers of Jehovah, weep between the porch and the altar, and let them say, Spare thy people, O Jehovah, and give not thy heritage to reproach, that the nations should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the peoples, Where is their God? Then was Jehovah jealous for his land, and had pity on his people. And Jehovah answered and said unto his people, Behold, I will send you grain, and new wine, and oil, and you shall be satisfied therewith, and I will no more make you a reproach among the nations. But I will remove you far off from your northern, I will remove you far off from you, but I will remove far off from you the northern army, and will drive it into the land barren and desolate, its forepart into the eastern sea, and its hinder part into the western sea. And its stench shall come up, and its ill savour shall come up, because it hath done great things. Fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for Jehovah hath done great things. Be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring, for the tree beareth its fruit. The fig tree and the vine do yield their strength. Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in Jehovah your God, for he giveth you the former rain in just measure, and he causeth to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month." So it's very interesting that this is coming up in Joel 2, which is all about the redemption. It's all about Christ's return. And it's talking about the former rain and the latter rain, which would be in the spring and the fall. And you see the word spring coming up here with the words May and April running right through it. It's talking about the first fruit. You see the word first highlighted here, and you see fruit over here coming up in the plain text. And it's talking about the first month, which would be the month of Nisan in the Hebrew calendar. So all of these things are coming up, and the word Easter is coming up. Even though it does show up in the plain text, it is created by an abacus effect, so it's still encoded in ELS at a skip a 1 in the plain text. So that's yet another one with the word Easter, which is very interesting. And I'm not sure about the table that had the 9th month. I don't know what happened to that one. But what I want to share next is the tables on Pentecost, which are really interesting as well. And as you saw, this one, which I have over here, this one had both the words Easter and Pentecost in the plain text. And as I had said, I do believe that Pentecost is valid even when it's broken up into two parts, if it's a two-part word, such as Pentecost or Passover. When it's made up of two parts, I do believe it's valid to break it up. And you'll see why it's valid when you see the next one that I did on Pentecost here, where I wrote the word Exodus in capital letters. I did that for a reason, because this one is actually coming up in the book of Exodus, and it's coming up in the precise location in the book of Exodus where it actually talks about Moses going up on Mount Sinai, and the smoke of the fire of Jehovah descending upon the smoke of the mountain. This is just before he received the 10 Commandments, and this is believed to be the day of Pentecost, the day of Shavuot, the day that's celebrated as Shavuot on the Hebrew calendar. They believe it to be the day that Moses went up on the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments, and it's a parallel to when the tongues of fire descended upon the apostles on Pentecost after Jesus had ascended into heaven, and then 10 days later, when it was 50 days from first fruits, and the Holy Spirit descended upon the apostles and they began to speak in tongues. It's a parallel to when the smoke of Jehovah descended on Mount Sinai, and the smoke ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the mountain quaked just before Moses received the 10 Commandments. And I'll go ahead and read the entire matrix, but I may actually just read it from the Blue Letter Bible so I can read the entire account so you can see what happened in the book of Exodus and how this was in the 3rd month, which is the month of Nisan, which is when Shavuot is celebrated, and in English the word for Shavuot is Pentecost. So I don't think it's by accident that the word Pentecost is coming up precisely in the place in the Bible where the very first Pentecost or Shavuot took place, when Moses went on the mountain. And I'll just show you that more in just a minute, probably in the next video, because I'm getting short on time with this video and I need to pause it for just a second, so I may explain a little bit, but then I'll explain the rest in the next video. Okay, I guess I'll do with the next couple of minutes that I have left is to just show you this article right here, which I've shown before, that talks about the many parallels of Sinai and Pentecost. And I'll probably just read the first paragraph here real quick. It says, the Feast of Shavuot, Pentecost in the Greek, is one of the 3 great pilgrim feasts that God told the Jewish people to celebrate. Occurs 50 days after the Feast of Passover. The holiday described in Leviticus 23 was primarily an agricultural festival and celebrated the end of the barley harvest and the beginning of the wheat harvest. However, early in Jewish history, it also took on an even greater significance. The rabbis determined that the timing of the Feast of Shavuot coincided with a great event in Jewish history of God giving his Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai. The Israelites left Egypt on the 15th day of the 1st month, the morning after the Passover sacrifice of the lamb. They arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai on the 1st day of the 3rd month, which would have been approximately 40 days. Moses then went up on Mount Sinai and stayed there several days, and then brought back down the 2 tablets written on stone by the finger of God. This total timeline closely approximated the 50 days after Passover that the Feast of Shavuot was supposed to be held on. And this is exactly what is in the matrix here in Exodus 19 going to Exodus 20, and I'll show you that in the Blue Letter Bible in the next video because I'm about out of time in this one. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.